Welcome to Better Odds Sports Betting. Here's our hosts, Kiev O'Neill and Kyle Hunter.
What's happening, Kyle? March Madness, my friend. We are streaming. We're on our YouTubes and we're on your Twitter. I'm real excited for this show, my man. Lots to talk about. You got your Nova hat on. What's that shirt you got? Is that an Oddsbreaker shirt, Kyle?
Yeah, it almost looks like an Oddsbreaker shirt. And yeah, it is indeed. I hadn't seen that one for a while, and I found that one today and thought today was a great time to wear it.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for doing that. Yeah, I got my polo on here. So hopefully that brings us some, extra insight for today because we have a lot to talk about. March Madness, man, just blowing through the month. And we are here for the NCAA tournament. Very excited, man. And my son finally filled out his bracket today, Kyle. And I got to tell you, I tried to stop him. I tried. But he put all number one seeds in the Final Four. I couldn't stop him, man.
Yeah, I had a hard time stopping my son with the chalk as well. So it seems like that's pretty common. So yeah, if you want to take on my son and Kiev's son, get in that Oddsbreakers bracket.
Yeah. If you don't like heavy chalk, you got a couple ones that you're playing with right there, man. Well, I'm real excited to talk to you today because we're going to do Friday games. But before we get into the Friday games, there are some angles that I always love to ask you about, Kyle. First, we have to bring up what happened last year. And what happened last year was first half unders. First half unders were money last year. As a matter of fact, after the first day, I noticed that. And I got on all, like in one quadrant, I believe. I'm not even sure if it was one quadrant. I took 7 first half unders and I won 6 of them last year. So what are your thoughts on that same angle for this year?
Well, I mean, if you look at the long term for the first half under is not too much different than it is for the full game under. In fact, the first half under dating back to 2011, they don't have odds, or we don't have numbers as far back for first halves as we do for full game, but 344 and 316, 52.1%. So if you were just blindly betting every first half under, you'd actually be down a little bit based on the juice, certainly. Last year, I can see the big spike up on the graph from just a massive run. I will say, Kiev, last year was a unique year with the COVID situation and the pod. You got all the players playing in the same spot. I don't know. I mean, I know the odds makers are adjusting to these types of things, and I'm a little bit concerned about everybody just blindly betting all unders. I believe the first half unders both hit last night, didn't they, Kiev?
Yeah, certainly. And I got to tell you, I'm going to be a little more careful, but I'm still going to be wary of it because I think what happened with the first half unders is they got a little bit shaded to the under because of the officiating. I think the officiating pushed it down a little bit. I think they swallowed their whistles a lot and there wasn't as much foul calls, which means better defense is played against the offense. So I'm expecting maybe a little bit more of that, kind of like in those final conference tournament games, Kyle.
Yeah, and one point that I think could help viewers and listeners quite a bit is these first half unders have actually done better, Kiev, when they're a tighter line, when the full game spread is smaller. So -5 to 5, where the full game unders have done better when we have a large spread. That makes sense because full game unders have done better with a large spread throughout the regular season as well. Usually teams let up a little bit if there's a big blowout at the end of the game. And in the first half, it doesn't matter what the spread is. Obviously, there is no overtime. There's no foul fest at the end of the first half. So I think if I were looking at first half unders, I would want to look toward games that have a close spread. If I'm looking at full game unders, I'd prefer to have a game that has a large spread.
No, that makes total sense because, if you're going to get blown out, there's a chance that the team just wants to run the clock and get out, stay healthy for the next round. So I love that. Always thought about that angle for years. And we have to keep reminding ourselves and listeners about that. If you're going to take an over and it's a team that could get blown out, remember that they're going to slow it down when they're up by 20, 25 points. Very important stuff. And yeah, with the unders itself, if it's going to be very tight, Foul Fest definitely take games over. And I needed a little help last night for the Texas Southern one, so I was glad that the Foul Fest came through for me. So let's move on to some trends, man. Is there anything that we should be thinking about coming into the tournament?
So I'll just give some general ones here to start with. The round of 64 only. Underdogs are 253 and 246, so we see no big edge one way or the other. Favorites have done better in recent years, though. So if you had looked at this 2 or 3 years ago, you would have thought you should just blindly be betting underdogs. If you look at this just in the last couple of years, the favorites have done well. Probably just regression to the mean. It's hard to just take a big angle like that and think there's going to be some huge edge. The unders have done a bit better than the overs have in the round of 64, but again, just barely. This is less than 52%. As far as more specific angles that I think would help people out here, teams who have covered 47% of the time or less throughout the regular season. So you're talking about teams that really haven't been making money to sports bettors. They've actually been a really good bet in the big dance. I think this makes a lot of sense. Those teams covering 47% of the time or less are 182 and 149. That's 55% ATS since 2006. And if you combine that with getting less than 50% of the bets, so 49% of the spread bets or less, and covering 47% of the time or less, it goes to 103 and 72, which is 58.9%. So you want a favorite or a team who's a quality team that is kind of being thrown out. In fact, if you look to just the favorites versus the underdog, the favorites are going to do better in this role than do the underdogs. So a lot of times we have favorites that are kind of out of favor, I guess you'd say. It makes sense to both of us. I think, you've seen teams that burn money throughout the course of the regular season, and Kiev, so many of these people say, well, look at this team's ATS record for the season. I don't really care what the team's ATS record is for the season. I mean, that's adjusted to by the odds makers. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to say, well, they're 10 and 15 against the spread so far this year. That doesn't matter in this game at all. A lot of those games, they were probably laying a big number, and now they're not. So teams that have been thrown out, probably good ones to keep an eye on here as we go through March Madness. And this is not a round of 64 one. This is just in general for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's some public dogs out there, and a lot of those might be affected here. I made a couple plays against some of those narratives. South Dakota State, a lot of people on that one, so keep that one in mind for sure. Awesome. How about any arena venue trends, Kyle? Is there anything that we should be aware of?
Let me hit you with a couple others before we switch over to that. I probably should have just rolled right through them.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But I always want to try to give several of these angles. Let's just mention the conferences real quick here, as far as which have done the worst and which have done the best. The Mountain West, 1938-1 ATS since 2006. So they've been burning money. West Coast Conference, 25-38-1 ATS. Actually, St. Mary's has done pretty bad. That has led to that quite a bit. And then Gonzaga has not covered the huge numbers. So, I mean, WCC is a weak conference. So once they get in the big dance, it can be a pretty big upgrade in talent they're playing against. And as far as teams that have been, or conferences that have been covering, the CAA is 22-10 ATS, really good. Some of that was a little ways back. We remember when the CAA was really good. Remember George Mason making those runs and some of those teams back through the years. And the Pac-12, 93-73-3. And I don't have to tell you, Kiev, but the Pac-12 has been absolute money here in the last couple seasons. So I don't know if they can keep it up, but they've been extremely, extremely good. And then one more I want to throw out, a 10 seed or higher. So, or I guess you could say lower, however you want to say it, 10, 11, 12, 13 seed that is favored is 53-40 against the spread. So when you take one of those 10 seeds or worse and favor them, they've actually done pretty well. I think this makes sense as well. You're not going to see this happen too often. It's not a large sample size. I'm not saying it's terribly predictive, but I do think it's interesting and something that we should keep our eye on going forward.
Think of Michigan when you think of that,
Yeah.
right? That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. 10 seeds that are favored. Good stuff, Kyle. Anything else on those trends, or should we move into venues?
No, I mean, we talked about some general trends, and I'm going to save one of my angles for as we do a game breakdown because I think it's a pretty good one. Let's save it. So everybody that's
All right.
listening, make sure you stay tuned in.
Fantastic. All right. So what about the venues then? Are these places, is there any good places to play for totals or bad places?
So Kiev, we talk about it in conference tournaments. I mean, we have some epic, really good conference tournaments as far as, Conference USA playing down there with the double court. You've got the Missouri Valley Conference, which Enterprise Arena has just been straight unders. I mean, the rims there are ridiculous. It's tough to make anything unless it's nothing but net. There are none of them that stand out to that degree. And I actually had a hard time finding ones that even really kind of stood out at all. PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh is 30-20 to the under. So it's not a huge sample size. I wouldn't say that I'd want to be just blindly betting unders based on that, but it has gone under, and some of the unders there have gone under by a decent amount. So versus what the line was, the mean under is off by quite a bit. So I would say PPG Paints Arena is an under arena. It's just, I don't know how large of an under arena it is. And then Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee is 28-22 to the under. A lot of these other courts, there's not much data on. I hate to say ones that are 4-2 or something like that, just because, such a small sample size, we have no idea what to do with that. But those are the only two that even had any kind of trends that stood out at all.
All right. So Pittsburgh, you have Houston versus UAB, and Illinois versus Chattanooga. And in Milwaukee, you have LSU versus Iowa State and Wisconsin versus Colgate. So there you go for those arenas. Good stuff, man. Yeah, it's always interesting to look at that and want to factor that in. Anything that could give us an edge is very important. So great stuff for that, my man. But you ready to get into some of these Friday games then?
Of course I am. Let's do it.
All right, my man, let's do it. I'm going to share my screen for anybody that's, potentially watching this. And I want to bring up the spreads here, probably from DraftKings. And we'll start here. Looks like a couple games were just added, right? We had Indiana win and Texas Southern win yesterday. So we got to remember those to handicap as well if we haven't done it yet. Loyola versus Ohio State is the first game I'm seeing here for Friday morning. Ohio State is now -1. This was pick'em. The total is 132.5. Kyle, I'm going to let you start out being the big Buckeye fan that you are.
So, Kiev, you know this about me. I'm a big Buckeyes fan, but I'm also a realist. Ohio State's not very good. I mean, especially here at the end of the season. Kyle Young is a key injury for Ohio State. He's had a concussion. He's had multiple concussions throughout his career. I know they're being very careful with him. Young is really important to both their defense and their offense. When Young is not playing, Justin Arns is out there a lot more. And I can tell you, Justin Arns is constantly exposed on the defensive end. Other teams will switch to him on purpose, then go one-on-one consistently. Just a major liability on defense. He hasn't even been making his threes. So, I mean, he's supposed to be a really good shooter who hasn't really been making his threes, and he's a problem on defense. Frankly, Ohio State looks bad late in the season. Only that win against Michigan State. And Michigan State, I don't know that they're very good either. Ohio State doesn't force any turnovers on defense. If you don't force turnovers on defense, you have to at least be good at defense just in the half court. And Ohio State's not. They're not good at defense. Loyola is a team to me that's rounding into form late in the season. They run a lot of pick and roll ball screen action, a ton. Ohio State is 210th defending pick and roll ball screen action. So as a Buckeye, I hope I'm wrong here, Kiev, but I'm putting Loyola to win this game in my bracket. Nobody can say that I'm always just going to back the Buckeyes. That's for sure. Hopefully the football season will be brighter, but I'm not thinking too positively here. for Ohio State in this game. And I will say Branham is a good freshman. I hope he comes back next year. I'll probably go pro after this season. But Liddell and Branham is basically all they've got right now. The rest of the team's really been struggling. I would bet Loyola if I were betting this game, Kiev.
Kyle, you do not fit the definition of a Homer fan whatsoever. Quit all your Ohio State groups immediately, man. Man, I looked for information today on Zed Key and Kyle Young, and I couldn't find it. They said, "Nope, game time decision." And if you're a coach, screw the fans. You're not going to release that information. That'd be stupid. Yeah, keep people wondering. I don't know what the heck's wrong with Kyle, right? With Aaron's. Or Kyle Young. I'm sorry, Kyle Young. Was he sick? What kind of virus does he have? Did you hear anything?
Initially, they said he was sick, and then it came out that it was just another concussion. And he's had like 2 or 3 of those here in the past, 24 months. So he's had major issues with concussions, and I believe he's had some dizziness and issues with that. So they're trying to get him to clear the protocol.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we're not going to know, and that makes this unbettable for me. But this should be a home game for Ohio State, it being in Pittsburgh, right? I think that Sister Jean could work some magic there, though. I don't know how Christian of a city that Pittsburgh is. So, I mean, here's the thing. This is a stay away game for me. Ohio State has a big advantage near proximity, but Loyola's got the advantage in the 3. Who's going to balance out, right? I mean, Loyola is a great 3-point shooting team. Ohio State only ranks 141st against it. And Ohio State's defense hasn't been showing up. They're just that up and down team that shows up sometimes. And I remember they just went to Michigan and beat them up without Liddell, I think. Yeah, it was without Liddell. It's like they're very hard to bet on. I'm staying away from this game, Kyle.
Yeah, I can't blame you.
Let's move on to the next one then. Jacksonville State versus Auburn. Auburn minus 15.5. Total is 138. Do you think that Bruce Pearl is in his face for the team, in their faces for that horrible finish in the SEC, man? I think he's probably flipped out on them. Yeah, he's probably been pretty emotional. He's an emotional guy. If you watch Bruce Pearl on the sidelines, I always think he's going to have a heart attack. But I think he might even revoke their NIL money if they lose this game, Kyle. So if you have a survivor pool and you like Auburn here, that's not a bad one. I think they're pretty much 9-0 in first round games. It might even be against the spread. I'll have to relook. I just saw a tweet on that. Jacksonville State, fortunate to be in the big dance. Bellarmine was the one that won it, right? But they weren't eligible to dance. So that's important. The only big advantage here I see, or advantage, I'm not even going to call it big, is that Jacksonville State ranks 11th in 3-point shooting, but they're stepping up into another class that they're not used to. It's just a massive matchup nightmare for them. I would like to lay it with Auburn, but unfortunately what's keeping me away, Kyle, is their away from home ranking is 336 and Jacksonville's is 13th. So that's keeping me off the game. I would consider an under. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of like Jacksonville State here, so I'll lean against what you had there on that one. Jacksonville State, to me, is better than a regular 15 seed. I think they probably are the best 15 seed in this. Ray Harper is a really good coach, too. 22-9-1 against the spread in the NCAA tournament. Harper does a really good job game planning for sure. They're 7th in shot quality, spacing on offense, 12th in shot making, knocking down 38% of their threes. I mean, you want an underdog that can make shots if you're grabbing 15.5 points against a good team. I do think Auburn is a bit overvalued in general. I'm not really high on Auburn to make a really deep run here. They do thrive on teams who are weak in transition defense. Jacksonville State's 86th in transition defense, so pretty solid. My biggest concern about Jacksonville State is their turnovers. Auburn gets a lot of quick points off steals, and Jacksonville State is prone to turnovers. You just mentioned the away from home rating. Jacksonville State's excellent. Auburn 336. Also, Auburn 338 in momentum. So Auburn is not closing the season strong. I like 2 things in this game. I like Jacksonville State and I like the under. I haven't bet either one of those yet. I will have a bet on at least one of those 2. I'm not sure which one I like better yet, Kiev, but I think Jacksonville State is going to slow this game down to a crawl. They don't want to run with Auburn. They won't do it. Now, if Auburn gets way ahead early, that certainly hurts the under. If this stays close longer, I think this could be a really low-scoring game. I think my stronger lean as of right now is Jacksonville State. I know it's not going to be a popular play, but I think this one could be a bit closer than some people think.
Well, look at that. The contrarian side on Jacksonville State. No, I like it. And I think that Auburn is going to have to show up their defense too. So my stronger lean is the under rather than Auburn itself. So just wanted to make sure that was known. Montana State versus Texas Tech. And here's another, defensive matchup possibly. Texas Tech, one of the best defenses, I think number one. Texas Tech is laying 15 points, 15.5, I believe. And I'll pull up DraftKings here so you guys can see it. The total on this game is 131.5. That's a pretty low total, Kyle. And now it's down to 14.5, I'm noticing. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, Kiev, I think there's no game that we're going to talk about today that it matters more how this game's officiated. If you watch Texas Tech games, they are really aggressive on defense. They're a very good defense. They do commit a lot of fouls. If the refs let them play in this game, Montana State has no chance. They cannot beat Texas Tech if Texas Tech's able to bump them around. Having said that, Montana State gets to the line a lot. If the refs are really whistle happy, Montana State shoots 75% from the line. Now, to be fair, they play in a conference where everybody does a lot of fouling. There's no good defenses. Montana State's offensive stats are skewed a bit because they're from the Big Sky. Texas Tech, going to be the best defense they've played this year, clearly. Montana State 12th away from home rating and Texas Tech 357th. And Kiev, we've had this discussion before. Texas Tech isn't very good away from home, but part of the reason their away from home rating is so bad is that they've been so amazing at home that the difference there is pretty drastic. This is a neutral court. It's obviously not Lubbock, but I don't think that I want to take Montana State in a game like this because there's such a huge class difference from the Big Sky to the Big 12. I mean, the depth of the Big 12, and then look at the Big Sky and how weak those teams are. I see a decent amount of people betting Montana State in this game. I don't want to bet Montana State in this one. I think that this is a Texas Tech or pass if I had to bet the side. I don't want to bet the total ahead of time either, like I said, because we never knew who's going to be officiating this game. If this is a ref show, this is going to go way over. If they let this one play, it's going to go under. So I think maybe a live look at this game would make more sense. If you see early on that they're calling everything, then it might be a good Montana State or over look. If they're calling nothing, Texas Tech probably wins by quite a bit here.
All right. Good call on this one. Yeah, over is interesting because Texas Tech has got such a great defense. So it makes me a little nervous thinking that way. But what I will say is that Montana State did some great things this year. But like you said, Kyle, massively stepping up in competition. And the Red Raiders are better in every facet of the game than Montana State is, minus the 3-point shot. The strange thing for me is the total. I wonder why it's actually this high. I thought it would be a little bit lower. Maybe it's because you see something and obviously leaning over. But I just saw Texas Tech hold two teams to like 50 some points each time in their tournament. It's that's pretty low for holding the competition in the Big 12 like that, the top competition.
Well,
the biggest.
I want to say I don't know that I lean over pre-flop. I only lean over if I think they're calling a lot of fouls early on. I don't really love betting Texas Tech over. So
thanks.
Even you saying I lean to the over makes me a little bit nervous because Texas Tech's such a good under team. So I'm neutral pre-flop here on this one. But if they're calling a lot of fouls early, I could see this one going over.
The biggest part of this for me is that Montana State is a much better away from home team than Texas Tech. Texas Tech ranks 357th away from home. That's not good. And Montana State ranks 22nd away from home. So I find that interesting. Now, Texas Tech, I've noticed, has not been blowing out teams away the way they've been doing it. I think it's just been kind of recent that Texas Tech's just been taking their wins by 5-6 points. And I know it's a lot harder competition, but I think Montana State hangs here. I took the 15.5, and it's now down to 14.5, Kyle, for 1.5 stars. But I say find a 15. I'd be okay with it.
All right, yeah, I'm going to stay pretty neutral on this game, and just watch for what's going on during the game, because we know how much officiating can change the game, and I want to stay away from it beforehand.
No problem. And we have a quick question. I just want to cover it real quick from EB2116321. Hope you guys can chat about the Colorado State and Michigan. Thank you. So here's the deal. And Michigan, they're due to win. You know why? Well, because you have lost, win, lost, win, lost, win. I mean, just looking at their crazy record this year, Michigan's been absolutely nuts. The big problem for Michigan is they're missing Devontae Jones today. He's hurt. I believe he's got a concussion that he's sitting out. And, Jones has been their top assist, 29.3 has been their assist rate. He's a point guard running the show there a lot, and I'm a little bit worried about that. And that line dipped from 2.5 down to 1.5 with that announcement. Here's what I'm not worried about. Hunter Dickinson is 7'1", and Diabate is 6'11". He might even be 7 by now after growing another half semester with how young he is. Colorado State runs everything pretty much through David Roddy. And David Roddy is not that tall. And I think that Michigan just has a massive size advantage over this team. Just like Kyle said about the Mountain West, I don't like this at all. And I think there's a problem with the officiating in the Mountain West. I think that they favor the defense, and it has to do with a lot of San Diego State games and Boise State. You see a lot of that, Kyle. But I think that it hurts them in the tournament because the refs swallow their whistles there, and now teams are playing the same defense that they've been doing all year, and they're getting called for it. They're going to be like, "What's going on here?" I jumped up straight up in the air, and you just called the foul. I barely moved my arm. Well, that can happen. I think Michigan wins this game, even without their player, even without Devontae Jones. I don't love it. A small play probably worth it, but that's where I'm at on that one. Anything quick, Kyle, before we move on?
Yeah, I would want to bet Michigan in this one. Jones is a key injury, though, and minus 1.5. I got to think about this one some more, Kiev, because I was ready to fire before I heard about that injury, and now it's kind of a question mark. I don't know if I'm going to bet this one personally. The only way I could bet the game would be Michigan. I think Colorado State is overseeded as a sixth seed. How did they get a 6th seed when Boise got an 8? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think that makes much sense to anybody. Boise goes and wins the tournament and gets dissed by the NCAA tournament committee. It's kind of weird. But Colorado State, a good team. Roddy's a good player. He doesn't have the height that a lot of the guys have. And Colorado State is not great defensively. They're a good offense. I think Michigan is much more talented, even without Jones, than is Colorado State. And the MWC has been so bad, ATS, that my lean would still be Michigan here.
All right, fantastic. Let's move on then. We have Yale versus Purdue. Purdue minus 16. Total is 143, Kyle. And I'm just going to say Yale's a very solid Ivy League team, but in the non-conference, they've gotten blown out in every step of the time. Every game they played was like a 20, 30-point loss. The Ivy League is not good. You saw how Princeton even struggled with VCU last night. I don't know how you could lay this many points with Purdue at the same time. Purdue's got a terrible defense. They play moderately fast, but I don't know what pace they're going to set either. Staying away, I'll lean over 143. Kyle, anything?
So as far as the side on this one, I think it's fair to say that Purdue has been a disappointment, at least to me. I thought that they were a national title contender, at least early in the season. Now it'd be a pretty big surprise to me if they were, a contender at the end of the day, because Purdue's defense has just been so much worse. And I think that it's because Lutz, who was their defensive coach, went to A&M Corpus Christi, who we saw play there at the start of the NCAA tournament. They were 11th and 34th in defensive efficiency the last 2 years. They're 99th this year. You can win games at even 34th defensive efficiency in the NCAA tournament, but 99th against good opponents is going to be a problem. Yale was fortunate to get to the big dance. Princeton shot the ball really poorly. I really don't think they have the talent to hang in here. So if I were forced to bet a side here, I would bet Purdue. My lean is to the under with thinking Purdue might let off the gas here late in this game. But, this is a game that I don't have too extensive of thoughts about.
All right, good. Let's move on because we have another quick question. Everyone wants to know about what's going on now. Rutgers, Notre Dame. I know Rutgers at home has been strong. Can we trust them? Here's the thing. I have a slight play on the Rutgers, and it's a 1-star play, very small. I think their senior leadership has to stick in here with guys like Harper, Geo Baker, guys like Omayuri. I think that they're a matchup advantage against Notre Dame. I don't care about the away home thing right now. I saw Rutgers come to Wisconsin and beat the crap out of us too. This is different. I give Notre Dame a 1.5 home field advantage, but I still home court advantage. I just still don't think Notre Dame's got the guns, and I'm down on the ACC. I think Rutgers wins this.
Yeah, I think Rutgers wins as well. That's certainly my lean. The other thing I was going to say is, I don't know what's going on here. Somebody absolutely loves the over. This total has been bet up by like 3 points. So I would lean to the under in this game if I were betting a total. My number is lower than this, 134.5. I'm surprised it's gotten this high. Notre Dame is not great defensively, but they do play slowly. Rutgers is a very good defensive team. I think my two leans here are Rutgers and the under, and I might bet a little pizza money on these.
Oh, geez. I didn't know the over was getting that high. Wasn't it just at 132.5, 133?
Yeah,
Jeez.
some steam on the over.
Oh my God. I might have to pay more attention to that at come tip off. Good stuff. I would take the under there. So there's our leans on that. Let's move on to the next game. We have Delaware versus Villanova, Kyle. And look at the spreads we just went through. 15.5, 14.5, 16, right? 15.5. Yeah, the other team's going to get their butts kicked, right? It's kind of like there is your handicap. No, but I mean, digging deep a little bit, these are about totals too. And you try to think about angles everywhere you can. 133.5 is the total, Kyle. I'll quick get started on this one. Delaware surprised to win the Colonial over Towson, but now they're in some trouble. I mean, Nova, they're going to be relentless. It's Jay Wright. Man, I don't want to go against Jay Wright in the tournament here. I'm going to try to not bet against Villanova as much as possible. Just telling you right now. I think that they have matchup advantages over Delaware everywhere. I don't see one possible chance that Delaware is going to stay in this game. My only worry is that and I had talked to you about this pre-show, Kyle, about this total. Villanova is so efficient, even though they play small. Sometimes they just score a ton of points based upon little possessions. You're shooting 50, 60%. So unfortunately, I can't even really take that either. I'll lean the first half under. What are your thoughts?
I can't take in a Nova game. It's hard to take a low under because Nova is so efficient on offense. At the same time, I don't like taking overs with Villanova because they're really, really very good at controlling the tempo and playing very slowly. I think Jay Wright's a fantastic coach. I really like him a lot. Also seems like a nice guy, very classy coach. So I like to root for Villanova. They don't quite have the top talent that they've had in recent seasons. Gillespie's very good and they have good players, but I don't think they have the talent that they had a few years ago when they won it or anything. Delaware is 25th in away from home rating, but they do foul a lot defensively. You don't want to foul a lot defensively against Villanova. They shoot 82.5% from the free throw line. The last I knew, I believe that's an NCAA record if they can keep that. I hope they can break that. That'd be pretty neat because there are so many teams that really suck at shooting free throws, and that's a major problem. I like Villanova as a team. I see 68% of the bets so far on Delaware. I'm a bit surprised so many people really want to bet on Delaware here, probably because it's a lower total with this big of a spread, but I don't have any strong opinion on this game, Kiev.
All right. No, fair enough. And we'll pass on this one and move on to the next one here. I think we might have a better spread to talk about finally, Kyle. USC against Miami. USC -2, total 140.5. Why don't you go first?
So I think we might disagree on this one. I think I like USC on this one. Andy Enfield's 10-1 against the spread in the NCAA tournament. His teams have been ready to play consistently time after time. The only loss was their last game there last year against Gonzaga, a Gonzaga team that was frankly just a lot better than USC. In this case, you have Miami from a weak ACC, USC with a massive size advantage, Miami the quickness advantage on the perimeter. Miami should score off turnovers, USC off offensive rebounds. Maybe an over here if I were going to bet a total. USC is 9th in consistency rating. I do like a team that's very consistent. I know what I'm going to get from them. Miami has not been very consistent. USC is number 1 in the nation in 2-point field goal percentage defense. I have a strong lean to USC in this game. Kiev, what do you think?
All right. Well, we do have disagreement here for sure. Here's the thing. It's up to 2 now. I might get close to betting the Miami side, to be honest with you. USC's just been fraudulent, in my opinion. They won a lot of close games. They're in the top 35 in luck. But they didn't beat anybody good in the non-conference minus San Diego State. And what do I say about San Diego State? All conference related. Both of these teams play well away from home and both rank in the top 50 away from home. Both of these teams have good 3-point shooting advantage over the other as well, but neither defense. See, both can hit the three and neither of them can guard it from what I've seen in the metrics, Kyle. So that makes me kind of look towards the over a little bit. Just those thoughts. I mean, it's sitting at 140.5. 140.5 tells you the books and the market's kind of thinking, these guys can put up a few points, right? This game's going to be more of a home game for Miami is the key thing for me. I mean, they're playing in Greenville, South Carolina. Probably about, it's definitely a long drive from Miami, but there's Miami fans, ACC fans sprinkled all over there. And when the Pac-12 teams comes in, I think they're just going to get booed. I think Miami gets it done. I think they win it outright. And I like it at the 2. But I'm also going to lean over the 140.5. And I actually wrote 139. So this must have went up a little bit because when I was doing my research yesterday morning, it was at 139. Boo-hoo, we missed that one. But, sometimes we got to disagree, Kyle. I think that's a good thing.
Right. We tend to agree here on the total, disagree on the side.
All right, man. Maybe we'll have a beer bet on this one or something fun.
Sounds fun.
All right, let's move on to the next one then. Let me share our DraftKings here. And sorry, being a little slow. Is this Virginia Tech versus Texas? And another close spread we got, -1 for Texas, and the total's at 123.5. Notice I haven't been mentioning the seeds, and of course I'd have to have an extra step to do it, but I don't like looking at seeds when I handicap games. I think it completely messes with your mind. I disagree with doing that. Now, if you want to do it from a trends aspect for fading, then I do agree with doing that. But in my opinion, these teams are very close to each other because of the spread, and Texas has their own problems, Kyle. Wrote down a few notes for this one. I was really impressed by Virginia Tech for what they did in the ACC, and I was wrong about them. But at the same time, North Carolina shot like 4 for 26 from 3, something like that. It was like 3 for 23, and then Duke shot 4 for 20 from 3. They lost. That's how they lost the game. It was partially Virginia Tech's defense, but at the same time, if teams shoot that bad from 3, they're losing the game. So Virginia Tech looks a lot better than what they were, but at the same time, they did get better. Now, and the problem with Texas is that they only rank 353 away from home, and that's tough. And which way you're going to go? I mean, I like Chris Beard a lot, but Chris Beard has been just losing some big spots this year in some big games. I thought he'd get one against his old team in Texas Tech. So Virginia Tech's going to have a 3-point advantage, ranking 7th in adjusted 3-point shooting percentage to Texas's defense, ranking 90th in opponent adjusted 3-point shooting percentage. Texas should have the near proximity advantage, ranking 45% in close to rim field goal percent to Virginia, ranking in the 148th, and not 45%. I meant they rank 45th to 148th. So it's going to be a foul. The fouls are going to determine some of this. If Texas can play some defense, against Virginia Tech without some fouls, then Texas might win this game. But if there's going to be a lot of fouls going on here, then I think that Virginia Tech might win this game. So it's a complete toss-up. I'll give you a slight lean to Virginia Tech just because they're a dog. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
I have no idea who to lean on this game as far as ATS. I mean, Kiev, Texas should have been better than this. Chris Beard is a good coach. I know he's a good coach, so I'm not going to diss him for one bad year. But it goes to show that a bunch of quality transfers don't always gel very well, because there were a lot of new guys came into this team. Texas was supposed to immediately be a top 5 team. They just haven't been. They haven't been very good, really, compared to expectations. And their away from home rating bothers me a lot. Now, Virginia Tech with that big run through the ACC, I don't know, Kiev, do you usually back teams or fade teams in that spot after they've made that big run? Because we've seen it go both ways. I mean, I remember last year when people were talking up Georgetown like crazy. Georgetown just absolutely laid an egg right away. So do you usually like to back a team that's made a run like that to surprise their way to the NCAA tournament, or fade?
Fade.
Yeah.
A lot of these tournaments are just games that players are more nervous for. Think of it like that. And it just goes back to the shooting percentage that Duke and North Carolina had when they played Virginia Tech. It's like, this is not what Virginia Tech really is. It's not, but what I will say, you have to be aware of it. You have to be aware that they're a better team than a lot of the perception and the perspective, but that, 7-8 times out of 10, they should lose to Duke, right, in this position. So they're fade in general, but I also don't love Texas that much. And if they're getting calls against them, that's bad. So, it'd be a great spot to fade. That's why I have a slight lean to Virginia Tech. Let's move on to the next game then. Chattanooga, the Mocs versus the Fighting Illini, Kyle. The Illini is -8, total 135.5. What do you have for this one?
Well, in this one, I think it's really interesting. Here's the angle that I teased earlier in the show. This one's going to fit the fade the public angle, which has done really well in the NCAA tournament. Favorites of 10 points or less, getting less than 50% of the spread bets, or 56% even since 2006. And that's a large sample size. It's been very good fading that public dog. Chattanooga is a public dog in this one. I think the public will continue to bet Chattanooga in this game. And I think Illinois has a high upside. I kind of think they're flying under the radar. They've been inconsistent, but I think that their highest, their ceiling is very high. Shot quality has Chattanooga as one of the luckiest teams in the country so far this year. They're 25-7. Shot quality believes their record should be 19-13. Their interior defense is not very good. If you have a bad interior defense, I can tell you don't really want to play against Kofi Coburn. Not the great guy to be playing against. And Illinois' defense is great in the half court. They're weak in transition defense, but Chattanooga doesn't run. They don't get out and run. I don't think Chattanooga is set up to match up as well with Illinois as most people think here. So it looks like about 75% of the bets have been on Chattanooga thus far. We'll see what it goes to by tip-off, because this one's a little ways away, obviously. But I think Illinois laying the points here is a pretty strong lean of mine. I'm not sure if I'm going to bet this one as a premium play or not, but I'll likely at least have some money on Illinois. I think Illinois is being undervalued in the marketplace.
Yeah, they're certainly being undervalued. They've been inconsistent, I think, and that's part of the reasons but I followed the Mocs all year, and I'm close to them with Coach Paris there being a Badger assistant for such a long time. I think when you look at this team, you have to remember that they have some pretty big names thanks to the transfer portal. You got Silvia Del Sosa, that was with Kansas, teamed up with Malachi Smith here, and they have been doing some pretty good damage to some teams this year. They wouldn't have made it in as an at-large, so you also have to think about that. And you're right, some of the faster teams like Belmont and Murray State did beat them, but will Illinois pace? I don't know. According to the metrics, Illinois should dominate down low, like you said, 21st in near proximity buckets. Chattanooga ranks 241st in defending it, but this is all because of Cockburn, right? I don't like the other forwards for Illinois. I think they're all guards and Cockburn, right? I don't like Johns. I think if Sousa can slow down Cockburn, there could be a little bit more of a challenge for Illinois. Now, the fact that Illinois is a decent 3-point shooting team is good, but they rank 44th in attempts, Kyle. They shoot a ton of them. So are they going to pass it down to Coffee like they should be doing every play? I don't know. Coffee doesn't shoot the greatest free throws. I just don't like the fact that they take a lot of threes. I think Chattanooga, who ranks 5th, Kyle, an adjusted opponent 3-point percentage, could show up here. Chattanooga it will be the lean for me in this game, so we'll disagree a little bit on this one.
All right, sounds good. Yep. Illinois, I think, is a team that could make a bit of a run here that some people don't see coming. So Illinois even would be a tricky matchup all the way out to against Arizona. I think that'd be a fun game.
I agree with you, and I have a future on Illinois, so I kind of want.
Nice.
I mean, when you have futures, you have to completely not think of them when you handicap this stuff. Your bets don't matter. If you happen to have one in the Elite Eight, hey, then let's start thinking, right? But right now, you shouldn't even be focused on your futures. Let's move on then to the next game, and let me get back to the spread here. We have Iowa State. No. We have Cal State Fullerton at Duke. Duke laying 18.5 total, 145.5. Kyle, I'll take the reins first on this one. Coach K's last dance, right? It's his last dance, kind of like Jordan's last dance going on, right? But unfortunately, with all the drama these days, who knows if it'll be like Tom Brady and Brett Favre and come back here next year when he's sitting at home realizing he's just getting older. Hey, coach, people do weird things, and I thought that was really weird that Tom Brady did that. I kind of thought that Brady was a little bit more, I wouldn't say mature, but just different, just being like, when I say it's done, it's done. But no, apparently he came back. But hell, Michael Jordan did the same thing. All these people do that, but it's a motivational aspect for Duke, and you're paying a premium for it, Kyle. One would think that Duke's going to want to just blow this team out after what they did last game at Cameron. They lose to North Carolina. Then they lost that ugly game to Virginia Tech. And this is why the line's juiced at minus 18.5, Kyle. I think that all the metric sites have this at 15, right? You're paying a 3.5-point premium for this, in my opinion. But I guess you're also getting a little home field advantage for Duke too, because it's played in South Carolina, right? So neither team plays all that fast. I think Duke does step it up, but I think it's they step up on their defense. I think that Cal State Fullerton doesn't even get to 50 this game, personally. I mean, Cal State Fullerton in a much worse division conference here. I like the under, and I took it at 146.5, and it's at 145.5. I think Duke's going to run up the points up to 70, 75. They're going to be up by 30, and then they're going to slow it down. And I think this remains under the big total. What are your thoughts?
That sounds like you really like Cal State Fullerton team total under as well for people who can grab that. I think that probably is a good look in this one. I mean, Cal State Fullerton is busy playing some really bad teams throughout the course of the season. I mean, they had a good season, but this is a team, they haven't beaten a team in the top 125 in the country. So even if Duke is not playing very good, this is a massive step up in class. Fullerton has played well lately, but imagine how much of a shock to the system it's going to be facing Paolo Banchero and company. Duke should roll here in this game. My strongest lean in this game would be the under, so we agree on this one.
All right, let's move on then, because we are getting shorter on time. A UAB, Iowa State versus LSU, -4 total is 127.5, as you can see right here on the screen. I'm just going to say that LSU lost their coach, Will Wade, finally fired. I mean, took long enough, huh, Kyle? He's fired for stuff that they're doing legal now. It's just so funny. It is ironic, I tell you. LSU is a little bit better what their numbers show because it's Xavier Pinson. Here's the thing. They're going to get a bump. People are going to fade LSU. I think the public's going to be on Iowa State because they lost their coach, and LSU is going to absolutely blow the doors off this team because they get a bump after this game. I don't like what I saw with Iowa State versus Texas Tech. They could not do anything against a good defense. Just absolutely stoned by Texas Tech. LSU, I think, is going to win by margin. So I'm just waiting on this, but I'll probably play LSU. Any quick thoughts?
Yeah, I think this one might get bet down even farther. We're at -4 now. I think you probably see a 3.5 here in this one because the public is taking Iowa State, no doubt. These two teams are 10th and 4th in the nation in defensive efficiency. I think this is an ugly game, one that both teams could struggle to knock down shots. Wade getting fired can't be a positive for LSU, but how big of a negative is it? Maybe overblown by some people. The talent edge here is clearly to LSU by quite a bit. LSU was really good early on, and Pinson got hurt, and they really struggled a lot. He's back. I lean LSU. I also kind of like the under. I'm hoping the under gets bet up a little bit more here, Kiev, so maybe I can grab the under.
Oh, makes total sense to me. I like it as well. That makes sense. The under, it looks like a good venue for it too, like you said, where they're playing. Milwaukee. Let's move on to the next one. UAB versus Houston. Houston laying 8.5, a little bit of juice here. Totals at 136. Kyle, any thoughts?
So Jordan Jelly Walker is fun for UAB. He's going to be a big story here. Houston has a good defense. Kelvin Sampson's a really good coach. I've said this before. Houston really hasn't beaten anybody good. They beat Memphis last game. Before that, they'd really beaten no one. They lack big wins this year. The analytics site love them. They are shorthanded. I'm not as high on Houston as some people, but Houston does one thing extremely well, and they're very good at three-point defense. They have been for years. Sampson's team is not going to give UAB easy threes here. Jordan Walker is going to be shooting over some length on the perimeter for Houston. I don't like Houston long-term to make a deep run like some people do, but I have a slight lean to Houston in this game. There are some pretty good angles that point toward the under in this one. I will say my raw number is higher than this, so I'm not really sure what to do with the total, but I'll lean Houston in this one.
Houston being a 5 seed is a travesty, in my opinion. They won their conference tournament. They lost a couple key players, but still played pretty strong. Dropped a few, but that's it. Neither team is good away from home, ranking both in the 300s. UAB does shoot the three well, ranking 9th in the whole league, but LSU ranks, or sorry, Houston ranks 11th. That's just like you said. I mean, they can defend the three, and that's where the under is going to come from. Houston should be able to eat this team alive, though, down low. They rank 6th in near proximity shots, and UAB ranks 278th defending it. So I would think that Houston's going to be able to score at will down low, and it's going to cause UAB to shoot a lot of threes. My worry about the total, Kyle, is if UAB panics and just goes a little faster and just shoots a bunch of threes here after they're getting beat really bad. I would lean first half under really strong, and I'm going to have a strong lean for Houston to cover it, Kyle.
Sounds good.
Let's move on to the next one. We have Davidson versus Michigan State. Michigan State -1. Total is 140. Kyle, I didn't look at the betting percentage, but this is one that Davidson might be a little bit of a public dog themselves. Actually, no, it looks like there's more money on Davidson right now. But this 8,000 bets, this is going to go to 100,000. So we don't know a ton yet here. But money split, the money's higher on Davidson. The total. Some people will bet Davidson so they can come back on Michigan State. People text me that they do this all the time. So I got to tell you, I'm not playing it right now, but I have a strong lean to Michigan State. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, is March still the month of Izzo? Easy for me to say, but Izzo has been so good in March. Maybe not anymore. I'm not convinced Michigan State's really that good this year. I mean, this is a down Michigan State team. Shot quality, we really like Simon's work. Shot quality says, based on the quality of shots taken, Michigan State should have lost 14 of their last 15 games, which is really insane. They won a decent amount of those games where they believe they should have lost. Michigan State ranks 299th in the country in shot selection. Davidson, an offensive juggernaut, 7th in shot making. They did beat Bama at a semi-road game. They won at VCU. I don't know. I mean, Davidson hasn't really done very well in the tournament when they don't have Steph Curry. And I mean, they don't have Steph Curry this year. I don't know what to do with this one, Kiev. This is a total pass for me.
So Michigan State shoots the three, 8th in the nation, 38.6%, and Davidson is 9th. So, but I will say that Michigan State defends it, ranking 51st in opponent 3-point, and Davidson is 217th. So there's your advantage for Michigan State here. I might get on Michigan State, and they're going to be faded, in my opinion, by the public. But we'll think more about that. Let's get to the biggest game of the whole tournament, then, Kyle. Wisconsin, man. They are an 8-point favorite here against Colgate, and the total is at 139.5. Who goes first? Do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I'll let you close with your team here. These two teams are actually kind of similar if you think about it. I know Wisconsin's more talented than is Colgate, but they don't have ridiculous athleticism, like Arkansas that Colgate played against last year. Colgate was ahead much of that game. Then we're kind of overwhelmed by athleticism of Arkansas late. Colgate's not going to beat themselves. I think Langle's a really good coach for Colgate. They're 11th in minutes continuity in the country. They shoot 40.2% from three-point range. You know this, in the NCAA tournament, you want a dog who can shoot the three ball and take care of the basketball. Colgate fits that. I think this is a close game here, so I do like Colgate plus the 8. It's hard to know what to do with the total here because Colgate's very efficient on offense. Wisconsin not playing as slow as they did in past years, but I have a pretty strong lean here to Colgate.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm not the big homer that Kyle was not a homer either. Remember, we mentioned that. I'm not the homer for Wisconsin either because I'm betting Colgate. I mean, Wisconsin, you look at what they did. The reason that they're bottom 30 in KenPom is because they step down to their competition. They play down to their competition. They play up to it too. Like they beat Purdue a couple times, right? They beat Michigan State. They beat any other top. I think the only one they didn't beat was Illinois at Illinois. They beat Iowa, right? And then they played 2 close games against 2 teams that are not even in the top 200. What's funny is that Colgate's the worst team in luck in the whole NCAA tournament, ranking like 324th, I believe, in luck. And Wisconsin is top 10 in luck. So that's something to think about. Bet on the unlucky team. Well, people want to factor in luck to their betting, but I mean, the truth is you want to bet against the unlucky team, right? Or bet against the lucky team. There's just 2 major issues with the batters. Terrible shooting percentage. Kyle ranking 291st in all basketball, and like I said, if Davis is out there in danger of losing, Colgate ranks 2nd in shooting percentage, and they're just so dang good last year. They didn't even need defense. This could be one of those spots that Wisconsin's just kind of played out. They're chasing Colgate around, and they're getting through ball screens and getting those quick, fast 3 jump shots and they cover. I mean, this is a big enough spread for me to be confident to take the plus 8. And I'll put a couple stars on that, Kyle. Probably a little sprinkle on the money line to make myself feel a little bit better if we lose this game. All right, we have some agreement on that one. Let's move on to the next. And we have the last game, TCU versus Seton Hall. And the spread on this one is -1 Seton Hall, total 129.5. Kyle, if there's a game that I don't want anything to do with, it's probably this one. All I wrote down was that these 2 teams are pretty similar, bad on offense, pretty good on defense, no real matchup here, advantage here. And so I should have mentioned the side. I don't want nothing to do with it because I think I do like the total. I've noticed that the trend line of the pace for Seton Hall since they lost Bryce Aiken has went seriously down. All right, seriously, since mid-January. And that's what happens when teams lose their point guard, they start playing slower. And TCU's slow playing themselves. They can't shoot. Under for me. I like it under 129.5 for a decent sized play, 2.5 stars. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we're thinking alike on this one, Kiev. We've had a couple disagreements, but I like the under in this game. Bryce Aiken was really important to Seton Hall. I mean, it limits them significantly without him. He was an underrated guard, key playmaker, still a top 25 defense in the country, though. Their defensive numbers have stayed very good without him. It's just been their offense that suffered, and they have slowed down. Jamie Dixon, 6-14 against the spread in the NCAA tournament dating back to 2006. TCU came on late in the season. They're used to dominating on the offensive boards. Seton Hall is good at not giving up second chance points, though, so I don't think they'll get too many freebies there. Seton Hall is 305th in shot selection in the country, so taking a lot of bad shots. TCU 315th in shot making. I think we have a recipe for an under in this game.
Oh, we have a big recipe for an under. Glad that we found some common ground here on the last few games. That's great, Kyle. We'll be rooting for the under on this one for sure. All right, we are out of time. Where could our listeners and viewers get your great information and plays for the weekend?
So you can head over to huntersportspicks.com. You can sign up for my free picks newsletter there. Also, all my premium packages available there. I got a March Madness all access pass for $249 here for the next 24 hours. So check that out if you haven't already. I know a lot of people have already taken advantage of that. Appreciate everybody tuning in. You can follow me at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter. I'm also on TikTok now a little bit, but we'll see if I can pick that up long term. I know Kiev's doing a little bit of that too. But seriously appreciate everybody tuning in, and best of luck to everybody on their March Madness bets.
That's right. Check us out, theoddsbreakers.com. We have you covered for the March Madness. Every handicapper is putting out a lean or a play on each of the quadrants. Now, they are keeping their premium plays themselves still, but they will give you a lean or just an idea of what's going on in these quadrants. And obviously you can get Kyle's totals package at theoddsbreakers.com. If you just want his totals, you can check that out. You can get all of my plays for March Madness. Just find me, Kiev O'Neill, on theoddsbreakers.com. Everyone, thank you so much for watching the show. Everybody enjoy the tournament and go get some winners.
Thank you for watching Better Odds Sports Betting.